Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean, broadcasting live from behind the blue wall of New Mexico in northwest New Mexico. Today we need to talk about more politics, unfortunately, something we need to look at before the break. A story dropped yesterday, but we've all seen it. We just didn't know what it was. Yesterday, the omnibus bill was passed to try to stop a government shutdown. Now, in this this omnibus bill, which always is a bad idea, Rand Paul had it right. Don't give the government the power to pass anything in a giant 5,000-page budget bill. So, what's going on in it? In it, there are a couple of provisions that we need to look at. Number one is safe storage. I've talked about that. But more concerning is there's a budget allocation directly to the ATF to enforce new edicts. Specifically, they're going after the gun brace. So while the rule hasn't dropped or changed on the ATF's website, it is officially going to probably happen. I say probably because this thing still has to pass. It didn't pass the Senate. The Senate's holding it up. Specifically, this is a big deal, guys. If they start doing this with the brace pistols, what they've done is made 40 million of us advocates of the 2A that have brace pistols of one kind or another. It makes us enemies of the state. If you keep this without registering it during their amnesty period, you'll be paying a $250,000 fine if you're caught, and you'll be facing up to 20 years in prison because you became one of those guys, a prohibited person, overnight. That's my problem with the bill. Number one problem I have with the bill is this thing and the one for safe storage. I've talked about the safe storage stuff. It's kind of inherent in the 2A that if you own firearms or collect them, that you would store them safely because you don't want them to fall into, enemy hands or bad dudes' hands. The same goes with braces. Braces have become a popular thing to make something, the most popular rifle, that is the AR, into a smaller package that people could carry around or use for home defense because it makes clearing a house, not that anybody's going to do it or anybody's ever trained how to do it. Some of us have, by law enforcement guys, because we wanted the skill set. Not that I'm going to, let's be honest, I'm not in shape enough to be going house to house, kicking in doors and clearing houses unless I absolutely have to, but I can do it. The point being is that 40 million of these plus have been sold, not to mention how many have been sold for Christmas, right? This is a very popular accessory, especially in the AR-15 world. I always thought that the reason why the brace was there was stupid anyway. For a lot of people, it was a way to get around the register your rifle as a short-barreled rifle or register your pistol as a short-barreled rifle so you could have it. But then if you move it out of your house, it's no longer 50-state legal. You can't take it across state lines. So if you had where we live, we're on the border area of Colorado and Arizona. If you had this in, say, your luggage, or and I say that because you'd probably have it in your trunk or something as you're passing state lines, that will become illegal overnight. If you're caught for a minor traffic stop or something, and they have probable cause to continue to search your vehicle, they're going to go deeper, and when they find this, if the officer is so inclined, this is the subjective part of law enforcement, they're going to throw the book at you. If this happens to be a federal or a state agent, for instance, like a state cop of some kind, this is no longer a question. They're going to go after you. This is a multiplier for them. This is the state coming after what they see as a bad thing now, even though a lot of law enforcement, a lot of people in the 2A community, a lot of senators and reps have this type of device on some of their firearms. So, yet again, they're trying to push down an edict that only affects the American populace, but it doesn't, and the law abiding American populace at that, versus what happens to criminals. I think the ATF has bigger things to fry, bigger fish to fry, as I've said before. We have a southern border that's open, basically. The administration is trying to fight to keep that the way it is, even though the governors, except for the fine governor of New Mexico, have declared emergency and started trying to plug those gaps. So much so that Greg Abbott, if you hadn't heard, has also put concertina wire on the border and mobilized the Texas State Militia, or the Texas National Guard, to enforce border policy. I've never understood how the federal government can get away with enforcing some laws but not others, and that goes with the border stuff as well as the 2A community. This is why I've adopted the stance so much so that not one more inch shall not be infringed. Freemen, don't ask permission. Because the 2A community has basically been hemorrhaged into near death at times by 1,000 little cuts. In 1986, when I was still a young, very, very young kid, it was legal to own machine guns. Then Reagan got in, and there was so much crime and violence on the streets with fully automatic weapons that something had to be done. At least that's what the NRA had said. Enter the National Firearms Act, and, well, that was in play beforehand, but they added a lot to the National Firearms Act as part of their crime bill. Now, if you know anything about American history, there are probably 2, maybe 3 crimes I can think of the top of my head that had fully automatic weapons. One of them was the one that Heat was based around, which was a shooting that happened in California, where the law enforcement actually had to go to a gun store and get a weapon off the counter, basically, to stop these guys. They used AR-15s. At the time, police didn't have AR-15s. There's another one, I believe it was in Florida. It was a bank robbery, something similar to that effect. And they realized that that's where the FBI back in the day went to the 10 millimeter from the 9 millimeters because it didn't have enough penetration to stop these guys. Now, those are the 2 I can think of at the top of my head. There's probably a smattering of crimes where people used one of these devices because criminals don't ask permission. Criminals aren't going to be worried about a law because they're already looking at trying to kill someone. So why the hell would you expect them to abide by the law? That's what makes no sense to me about the political environment we're in. You know, a sign does little to deter people. The fact of the matter is, bad guys don't care. If they're going to do something, they're only going to do it in their own self-interest. And that means if they have a goal of killing people, they're going to kill people. And there needs to be good people there that are willing to put it on the line and pick it up and are trained enough to stop these bad people. So, I'm asking you yet again to contact your senators, your reps, tell them, hey man, this isn't okay. Specifically, reach outside of your comfort zone. Hit the big ones like Thomas Massey, too, who isn't a rep for us in New Mexico, but he seems to be one that's approachable and very much on the 2A side. So's Rand Paul. Anyone right now, any port in a storm, because, baby, it's raining in the 2A community. And the U.S. news media has been compromised in such a way that stories like this drop at the worst possible time. Right now, everybody's gearing down for Christmas. We have family coming in. We're all separated a little bit from where we are. We're not necessarily watching the stuff that's coming out. We're just trying to enjoy our holiday and our family time and our downtime because we deserve it. It's been a year. It's been a tough year. And we're ready. Okay? To that end, I've decided I wasn't going to podcast tomorrow. And I won't be podcasting Monday because it's the day after Christmas. Mostly because I'm going to spend time with my family and get some other ducks in a row as I move forward in this journey of now being a jobless loser. That's not true. I've never been a 100% loser, and I'm not going down without a fight right now. I have a business opportunity that I'm taking in addition to just trying to get my podcast with a bigger audience while I get positioned to do other things. I hope you have the merriest of Christmases. I hope you get that special 2A gift. And for anyone that's still looking for ideas, you can email me at atin082@gmail.com. Now, what does atin mean? Atin means stubborn. 082, my dad was in the 101st and 82nd, I believe. At least that's what he always told me. So these are homages to my dad and Mandalorian homages because Aten means stubborn or tenacious. And anybody knows me knows that's kind of how I am, different by design. It's sad that I have to keep looping back to the political stage where I'm trying to get us back to the cool content. I hope you find me on the podcasts all across the interwebs. New Mexico Black Rifle Operators is everywhere. We have a Rumble presence, and our podcast even drops directly on YouTube. We don't have video there because, well, the 2A community isn't well loved in a lot of these places. Rumble seems to be the one place that does seem to be okay with us. So does Spreaker. Spreaker seems to allow me, or Spreaker, the podcasting formats, allow me to be a little more controversial, skate under the radar for as long as possible, which isn't what I'm trying to do. It's kind of by a feature, not a bug for me. So, have a Merry Christmas. Be great. Like, share, subscribe. Rumble. Find us on Rumble. Help us get our presence out. Help me get my presence out so that people can find New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union and understand that the people behind the blue line and the blue curtain, we're still fighting. And there's a lot of good territory in New Mexico specifically that isn't ready to give up being tactical. Be great.